The Geek Speak Show is produced and distributed by 22 Creations Multimedia, LLC.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Welcome to one of the longest-running geek culture talk shows. Welcome to the Geek Speak Show with Henry San Miguel and the nerdy Navajo Shanclen. And introducing Emily Mata. The Geek Speak Show has been speaking geek since 2010. This is the Geek Speak Show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Geek Speak Show. Now we got a jam-packed show this week, so let's get started on it, shall we? But before we do, hang on. Let me clarify one little thing. Now I know that the title of this episode probably brought many of you who love horror and or love paranormal topics, and you're thinking back to the show, the paranormal show that Shanclen and I used to do, and you're thinking, hey, Henry and Shanclen, they're going to talk about Poltergeist and vampires. Well, not really. Sorry to disappoint you, but that show, those topics, that ended last Halloween. And unlike most horror films, most horror monsters, that show is not going to come back. So why Poltergeist and Vampyres in the title then? Well, in a moment, you're going to hear why the title of this episode has the words Vampyres and Poltergeist. Yeah, there is a reason for it. You'll find out in just a minute. Don't go anywhere.
Here's Aaron Dill letting you know when and where we'll see you at the con.
Hey there, everyone. I'm Aaron Dill, and this is going to be one of the shortest features so far this year, as only 2 events are happening this week. Gallifrey 1 2026 at the Los Angeles Airport Marriott is on February 4th through the 8th. Anime Gaming Con on February 7th and 8th at the Fresno Convention and Entertainment Center in Fresno. I hear Fresno is also a great place to find yourself a good box of raisins. And as always, head on over to thegeekspeakshow.com and click on the Events tab for more information and links. And as always, I'll see you at the con.
For all the links to these cons, visit the events page on thegeekspeakshow.com.
Now back to the Geek Speak Show. Here's Henry San Miguel.
And we're back on the Geek Speak Show. So today's first guest is Ricardo Delgado. He's a Hollywood concept designer who's worked on films like Apollo 13, Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Incredibles, WALL-E, and a whole lot more. I won't say all of them. We'll be here for another 5 hours. He's worked on a lot of them. Ricardo's also a writer and illustrator, and he's created the Eisner Award-winning series Age of Reptiles. He joins me today to talk about his upcoming illustrated novel called Vampyre, a Costa Rican Folktale. Welcome to the show, Ricardo. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much, Henry. Happy to be here and talking about things that go bump in the night and all that. So,
yeah. Well, let's go. Let's start with Vampyre first. Now, don't give me everything. Don't spoil everything, but tell it. They can figure out it's called Vampyre, what it's going to be about. Or what is it going to be about, really?
Well, essentially, the storyline is. Or the log line, as they like to say in town here. A small town in Costa Rica in the 1940s starts to be the setting for murders every night. And so the townspeople, the government officials, the religious officials get together and they form a manhunt for what they think is a human being, but it turns out to be, something supernatural, hence the title. So, yeah. So it takes a quick twist, and you kind of go into it knowing, the title of what the supernatural being is all about. But I was really interested in the crossroads of what it would be like to be in that small town, and that small town is based on the town my parents grew up in, so it's very ancestral to me. And in speaking to my parents, the stuff that you talk about with your elder parents when you're all grown up, there's kind of an intersection in history where there was a civil war going on in Costa Rica at that in 1948, and that happened during Holy Week, or as we people that speak Spanish say, Semana Santa. That's like Easter week. And I was like, man, that's a really cool story intersection, and that's where the story kind of began to forge itself, if you will.
Yeah, you're right, Beak. I was actually going to ask you about that because you say this is a very personal story for you, and like you said, you talked to your parents. It's even dedicated to your parents, actually. This new story, but you talked about it a little bit there. How does the Costa Rican vampire folklore, is it different than what we know about the vampires in the West, or pretty much the same?
No, that's a good question. A lot of this goes back to the research that I did for my first vampire novel, which is Dracula of Transylvania. Okay. And so I did research for vampire lore from all over the world, and I started thinking, man, why can't there be Costa Rican vampires, that kind of thing. And so I thought about that even while I was writing and illustrating my Dracula story. And then, in talking to my parents about their history and whatnot, there is a lot of mythology in Costa Rica, a lot of folklore, I guess, is a simpler way to put it. And they're based kind of on the same stuff that you would see in Grimm's fairy tales. Grimm's fairy tales are basically there to scare little kids. Don't go in the forest. You won't come back alive. That kind of stuff. And it's kind of the same thing in Costa Rica. Don't go out and get drunk, or, the hound from hell will come and eat you. So there is kind of a basis in, some would say morality, others would say cultural control, right? It depends on how you roll with that kind of thing. But I felt like there was enough of a story about, dead people walking the country roads and hellhounds in Costa Rica to sort of create my version of a Costa Rican vampire. And that's how it kind of worked out.
Before I heard about this story of yours, I was thinking back because like everybody, I've enjoyed vampire movies. Dracula is the one that everybody knows about, like you said. But I never really thought of that. We all know the Dracula from Transylvania. I want to suck all of that. That we're familiar with. But
of course,
it wasn't until yours that I started thinking, why aren't there Costa Rican or Mexican? Because I'm from Mexico. Or Mexican or Chinese or vampires. Why is it only in Transylvania? So I love that about the fact that you're covering a Costa Rican vampire, not the usual, Dracula that we're used to.
No, thank you, Henry. And honestly, in a interesting way, that's very circular, and it comes back all the way around. I remember being in Costa Rica in 1972. We all went there that year and spent about 6 months there. And one of my uncles took me to see Brides of Dracula, which is a Hammer film, but there's no Dracula in it. And he took me to see Horror of Dracula, which is like Christopher Lee, who's like this badass version of Dracula. Yeah, absolutely. And he also took me to see El Santo contra los Mujeres Vampiros. Okay. And so that's when I started realizing there's a rich history in horror in Mexican cinema. And so I really kind of started to fixate on El Santo and all those really cool, old school horror movies set in Mexico. And for me, it was like this really beautiful and mysterious Mexico of the late 1950s and early 60s, right? Kind of analogous to my parents and perhaps yours, time there, right? And so it was really neat for me to sort of to see that. There's a few really cool Mexican vampire movies, El Vampiro, El Ataúd del Vampiro, that I highly recommend to everyone. and it certainly really influenced me. And I gotta say, I remember being in Costa Rica in '72, and I'm a little kid, man. I prefer to watch a monster movie than to go to church, honestly, back then. Yeah, and so like we're staying with my maternal grandparents, and we would have lunch, and we would have to do a rosary after lunch, man. And I would be like, oh my goodness, I try to get out of it, but my abuelitos are like, no, you gotta bust that move and sit here and and go through the rosary. But after the rosary, they would show Dark Shadows, dubbed in Spanish, and it was called Sombras Tenebrosas. And so I guess what I'm saying is, when I was a little kid in Costa Rica in 1972, that's kind of where I discovered vampires. My vampires have always been Spanish-speaking vampires. They've always been in black and white, and the whole vampire speaking in Spanish thing was not a strange thing to me. So in a weird way, it feels like this all kind of took its natural course, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things actually about that. One, if anybody's wondering or you're not familiar, El Santo that you hear him said, he's actually like a luchador superhero.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that there was a movie, El Santo, basically translated means El Santo versus the Vampire is what it is.
That's right.
That shows you how big he was. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't know if you were familiar with this, Ricardo, but when the original Dracula, the 23?
The Lugosi Dracula is 1931. It came out the same year as the Karloff Frankenstein. But I will also say, on top of that, is that there's a Spanish language version of Dracula, which you might have been about to allude to, Henry. So I apologize for that.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, you're right.
And it's actually like half an hour longer than the Lugosi version. It's got all kinds of really cool extra footage, extra scenes that are not part of the, I'll call it the Todd Browning version. Todd Browning directed the Lugosi version, and there's a fellow named George Melford directed the Spanish language version. So the Browning company of players filmed during the day, and then the Melford version, the Spanish language version, came in at night. And so they filmed on the same sets or the same locations at the same time. I guess that was before the studio said, wait a minute, we could just dub this, right? But it is, in my opinion, the most valuable treasure of all those, wonderful, Universal horror movies that I just ate those up when I was a little kid. And so when I saw those El Santo movies, because they were in black and white, because they had vampires and werewolves, they were analogous to the Universal films. And I appreciated all of them. I thought El Santo was really cool. Mil Máscaras, the Blue Demon, all that stuff. It was like superheroes fighting monsters, kind of, if you will, back in the day, So
honestly, I mean, I remember them when I was younger too. Also, we're on the same age, and I would compare it to what we're getting with the Marvel movies. That's basically
big time. It's all interconnected. It's this, it's like, for me, there were two universes kind of melded into one. There were the Universal Monster Universe, and then there was the Mexican horror cinema universe. And for me, they were one. And like, I have to find a link, but on YouTube, there is a list of like 50 or 60, Mexican horror films that I would recommend to everyone. And I remember I posted that link on Blue Sky, and Guillermo del Toro immediately reposted it, such as its influence. So I don't know. In one sense, we live in a good time where all that stuff is available. If anybody types in El Santo contra los Mujeres Vampiros in YouTube, that'll pop up, man. It'll pop up. So enjoy all that.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the Mexican Dracula, I guess if you want to call it that. I actually own it because if it on the Blu-ray with the Universal Dracula,
that's right.
It actually has it on there.
That's right.
Somebody can, if you can find it, if you want to watch it, it'll probably have it on there if you want to watch it.
Yeah, there's like a big Blu-ray set of all the Universal monsters, and I'm not sure whether you can I have that set, but if you buy the individual Blu-ray of Dracula, or as part of that set, the Spanish language version is on there. I got to be honest. I remember this is how much of a nerd I am about that stuff. I remember working on the Universal Studios lot early in my career when I was a film illustrator. I was working on some funky stuff like Sequest DSV, which is it's like the submarine show created by Steven Spielberg. Yeah. But I could buy stuff at the Universal company store, and they had all Universal Monster VHSs there, and I saw the Spanish language version of Dracula, and I pounced on that. Like I bought that right then and there. And so, the studio understands that those two, exist, and it's really cool. And I gotta be honest, I feel like the Spanish language version is more complex in its camera work. The editing is sharper. It tells a more complete story than the Lugosi version. I know that might be kind of blasphemous to say, but just watch the movies, and that's a really cool evening to watch those versions back to back and compare them. I've done that more than a few times.
I think you just gave somebody some ideas what to do for this Halloween.
Yeah, no, excuse me. Yeah, you sit there and you rent. Whether you rent them or whatever, there's actually like a Universal Monster channel on Tubi, I think. Yeah, I grew up with that stuff, and really, really meant a lot to me. I was a weird little kid, man. I would like really focus on like in El Santo contra la Mujeres Vampiros, like there's bad guys, there's henchmen, but they have capes. I'm like, what do they need capes for? Or they run around, they'd be in like wrestling suits, and they're like, they should be like dressed regularly. It's kind of funny. And then like El Santo, I'd sit there and watch him in a conversation like, well, how does he eat? Does he take his mask off? Does he pull it up over his nose like Spider-Man? Like I said, man, I was, that stuff meant a lot to me. It was really important. And you add that to being a funky little kid and at the end of all that, it all worked out for me. And here I am, telling stories about the stuff that I loved as a little boy.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm laughing, because you're basically describing me and everybody that's listening to this show that it's funny. I'm sure you understand this. We, like you said, we were the weird kids. Today, we're the cool kids now.
I guess, man. Henry, you're probably way cooler than I am. I was at this collectible show a couple of weeks ago, and there was this Aurora King Kong, model kit, and I hadn't seen that thing since I was a little boy. I had all of those, and man, I was so tempted to buy that thing, And I'm like I'm in my early 60s now, and I got a lot of stuff. My studio is packed with books, but there's also like monster models and action figures and stuff like that. And so I got to be really impressed these days to buy it. But yeah, I remember buying those Aurora model kits. I think Dracula was the third or fourth one that I bought. They had like really beautiful paintings on the cover, box art by this guy named James Bama, and they're amazing. Look those up. You don't have to buy them, everybody, but the cover art by James Bama is just unbelievable. I loved all that stuff. I was like totally obsessed.
Yeah, I'm the same way when we go to conventions, or we have some places around here that have those things.
Yeah,
I always ask myself, because when I was growing up and these things were relatively new, my parents didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't get a lot of the Auroras, the toys.
That's right.
All that. Now we can afford it, but I always ask myself, well, if I get it, I mean, what am I going to do with it? I'm not going to play with it. And
exactly. No, I gotta, like I said, I had a lot of that stuff in my studio, and now it's kind of drifted out into the foyer, the landing on the second floor, as well too. So, and I got a nice little cabinet I'm currently obsessed with all those NECA action figures.
Yeah.
I love those. They're so detailed. Oh my God, but, yeah. And then, kind of below that, I have a bunch of Pacific Rim monsters. as well. So I love all that stuff, man. And I grew up, my dad was my dad worked at Lockheed for 40 years. My mom was a teacher's aide. And, I kind of figured out that, we didn't have a lot of money to just buy me 4 or 5 Aurora model kits in one shot. If you wanted it, you got to save up, dude. You got to save up. And so that's what I did. Right. And so my money was measured. My siblings would buy, we get $1 allowance, and they'd run down and get a candy bar. You can get a candy bar for 10 cents back then. Now they're like $3 or whatever. But I would save my money for comic books, for Famous Monsters, Filmland magazine, and those Aurora model kits. I was just, that was my jam. And I looked at it like, well, you buy a Snickers bar, you eat it, and then what? But if you buy you save up and you buy the new Superman versus Spider-Man comic book for $2, that's going to last you the whole summer. And that's how it worked out.
Yeah, let me bring it back to. I didn't mean to. I love when I meet people that are like me. So this could go on for 9 hours.
Yeah, really, that's cool. No worries.
But let me bring it back to Vampyre. I mean, it's not surprising to hear that you ended up working in Hollywood as a concept designer. I mean, look at your imagination. Look what fired it up. So, doing that, to being a concept designer, how does that help you bring the novels, the illustrated novels, to life?
Oh, that's a good question, Henry. And here's my answer. Okay, so when you are a working concept designer in Hollywood, what happens is you get hired by the director or the producers or sometimes the studio to work on a movie. Okay, and it's like this on every movie, whether it's a monster movie or a superhero movie or whatever, right? Hey, we need a bunch of artwork, a bunch of concepts, a bunch of versions of, say, for the sake of this conversation, El Santo. Okay, let's say we're doing an El Santo movie. How can we need a bunch of artwork to show the studio or to show the director, and sometimes the director show the studio what he or they are thinking. And so that's where people like me would come in, and we would generate different versions of El Santo, right? So it has to be recognizable as El Santo or Godzilla or King Kong or the creature from the Black Lagoon. But it has to be, there's like different iterations. Like maybe there's like a more reptilian version of the creature from the Black Lagoon, a more cadaverous looking mummy, right? Or a Godzilla with bigger spikes or smaller spikes, that kind of thing, And so what I did is I applied that process to Vampyre. So then my Vampyre in that story is a shapeshifter. It changes shape, into a bird, a big black bird, or there's another night where it changes into like a dog cat thing. And so then I did a bunch of different versions of all those different transformations. And I ended up using species that are native to Costa Rica as the backbone, the design backbone for that. For example, I wanted the big black bird to be a raven, but there's no crows or ravens in Costa Rica. Okay. But there is a small black bird that's very aggressive, and it flies. It looks like a black roadrunner that flies. It's super aggressive. It's very cool. You see them all over Costa Rica. So, okay, I kind of based it on that. And then for the cat dog thing, there's this big cat in Costa Rica called the Jaguarundi. Okay. And it's basically, it looks like a Star Wars cat. If you guys just Google Jaguarundi, Jaguar, and then Undi at the end, you'll see it. It's really cool. And so I have like 4 or 5 different versions of the bird version. There's 4 or 5 different versions of the dog cat thing, that kind of thing. And so then I took the story that I wrote, and then I added this level of conceptual design to it. And, I had a lot of fun doing it. And I think that it's something that perhaps hasn't been seen before outside of like the Art of Star Wars books, right? If you look at those Art of Star Wars books, there's like, well, here's like, 5 or 6 different versions of Jedi or Sith, so it's the same thing here. And it was done to my best professional level of finish, so that like readers could actually read that book and then pick their favorite version that I designed, or whatever comes to their mind, and then execute or read the story based on which design of mine they like, which I think is kind of cool.
I was smiling as you were saying all of that, because only people like us and who listen to this show would describe, like you said, it's a really aggressive bird, but it's really cool, or it's a jaguar, but it's like a Star Wars.
Yeah, no, you have all this pop culture reference that's available to us, and I think that's why that kind of lingo is used in production meetings. You walk into a room, you say, people will say, Ricardo, what is your Dracula story about? I'm like, well, it's The Exorcist meets Lord of the Rings. Like, boom, there it is, right? Like, you get it. And that's called an elevator pitch, And so that's why the story was so important to me on a personal level. But then I took it and used my professional design acumen to I guess further the story in a fun design way. Also, I have to say, like, I depicted some of the murder scenes, some of the characters that are murdered in the story, and I have to say, I remember being a kid in like late elementary school or early junior high, and I don't know how or where the context was, but I found this book on old crime photos, okay, and I don't know if it's like, it has to be like newspaper people taking photos of like crime scenes in LA, whether people were shot in a nightclub, that kind of thing, like very like Al Capone stuff from the 30s and 40s, and it really affected me, and so that's the other facet of the concept art too that I wanted to show. And so I crammed that all together, and there's like maps. There's a map of all of most of Latin America, but Costa Rica's in the middle. Then there's a map of Costa Rica itself, and then there's the map of the town which my parents grew up in, Alajuela. And so each night there's a location in the book that is on the map. So you can actually take the book and go to Alajuela and walk the streets of Alajuela and go to the actual locations of my fictional murders, if you will. So it was fun.
And I should let everybody know before I forget, there's currently a Kickstarter campaign, and I do have it linked on the show description, also the show notes on the website for all of you to get behind. Ricardo, talk about what's offered exclusively to backers of the campaign.
Well, I will say that there's a really, really cool, what Clover's calling a crimson cover. Okay, it's like a slip cover. It's like cloth, and it's embossed with one of my designs. It's really, really cool. Okay, and then one of the other versions is the slipcover version, but with my tarot card set. So a lot of people don't know this, that Dracula of Transylvania did so well that Clover published an Art of book, kind of like the Art of Star Wars book. Mm-hmm. And then that did really well. And so then they said, hey, what else do you want to do? And so we came up with a tarot card set. And so it's that sold so well, actually, that it went out of print. And so Clover is reprinting it for this as an added goodie. And I think that's really cool. It's Vampyre itself is an extension of the Dracula of Transylvania universe. And so it's like a minor story, like what happened, what do these vampires do when they're not doing whatever Dracula says, kind of thing, right? And so in addition to all that, there's some really cool prints that reproduce some of my concept art. And then lastly, there's like a pad of paper with like a skeletal pen. And I was like, oh man, it's very H.R. Giger. I told him I gotta have one of those, man. It's really cool. So yeah, lots of goodies there. I feel like it's a really worthy campaign. It's based on if I can quote Linus Van Pelt from It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, it's very sincere. It's very sincere, and it's a really strong story. It means a lot to me, and I feel like if you read that, you'll come out of it knowing a lot of stuff you didn't know before, and it's a really good story, and it's all the stuff that I just loved as a little kid. So I'm really, really proud of it, and so is Clover. I'm grateful that they backed it, and I hope that those that sign up enjoy it, because it's a really cool project. And you know what? Hunt me down at a convention. I usually do 2 or 3 conventions a year. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Look me up, and then I usually post when I'm gonna appear, and just bring the book to me. I will sign it, and do a little sketch for you, whatever you want. Happy to always be of service.
Yeah, like I said, I have everything linked up on the show description. You want to give him your social media or websites or anything that you have?
Yeah, it's okay. So it's Ricardo Delgado on Facebook. It's also Ricardo Delgado Art on Instagram. I have my big logo from Dracula, either Dracula or Vampyre, as my profile photo. So yeah, I'm pretty easy to distinguish. There's a lot of Ricardo Delgados out there, but not too many with a vampire looking dude as your cover photo. So that's probably me. Look me up, and I'm always there to chat. I have to warn everyone, I'm on Blue Sky as well, and I am on I'm on LinkedIn, but that's more professional stuff, Yeah. So I'm always there. My Instagram and LinkedIn and Blue Sky, they are super nerdy. So you've all been warned. If you want to see all old Disneyland pictures and monster movie photos from like 50 years ago, that's kind of my jam. So but look me up. I'm always happy to represent and just talk about the stuff that I love with people that like it too.
Yeah, no warning necessary, honestly. I mean, this show is called the Geek Speak Show. I think.
Okay, so preaching to the choir here then. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it was it's a lot of fun. I just kind of look, man. Like I said before, I didn't grow up with a lot. I had a stable home. My parents gave us everything they had, and gave us a stable home. And look, this book is kind of my humble way of like immortalizing them in a sense, right? The book in the end is for my parents, and it's for my kids. And I wanted my kids to get a flavor, and everyone else that comes after my kids, to get a flavor of what it was like to be in the old country back in the day. And and my parents really enjoyed the story, because they know that death is undefeated and all that, right? And so they wanted to they got excited about capturing their experiences in their life back then for posterity. So their children, their grandchildren, and their great grandchildren could just know, so it would be there as a record of all that, so they could appreciate it, and that in the end means a lot to me.
So even more reason to get behind it. And you can, again, I have a link to everything, especially the Kickstarter, on the show links and on the website. Ricardo Delgado is his name. Vampyre, a Costa Rican Folktale. The Kickstarter ends as you're listening to this next Thursday, February 12th. So hurry up and get behind it. Ricardo, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure, and you're welcome back on the show anytime.
Thanks, Henry. Give me a shout anytime. I'm happy to do it. Maybe we could do a postmortem once Vampyre comes out. And I do have like a big science fiction spy thing coming out sort of toward the end of the year called Warhead. Maybe we could chat then. So happy to do it anytime.
That you just guaranteed a return visit. So we'll talk to you then.
Okay. Let's do that. Thanks, man.
Okay, you guys ready for more? Good. Me too. So that interview explains why Vampyre is in the title. Now, in this next one, why Poltergeist is in the title. Spoiler alert, yes, it has something to do with the movie. Don't go anywhere.
Aho, young warriors. Get ready to receive the teachings. This is Nerdy Navajo News. Here's Shanclen.
Oh, yeah, hey everybody, good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Shanclen here with the Navajo Nerdy News. Yes, let's go ahead and hop into some stories and see what's been happening in geek culture. Now, the first story here is going to be pretty sad, so brace yourself, everybody. Last Friday, Catherine O'Hara passed away at the age of 71. She was seen in many films and TV shows, but will always be remembered as Kevin McAllister's mom in Home Alone movies. Others will remember her from Beetlejuice in 1988, and she voiced characters in Monster House, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Chicken Little, and Frankenweenie. This audience last saw her last year in The Last of Us Season 2. No cause of death has been given. So, rest in peace, Catherine O'Hara, and thank you for everything you've done while you were here on this earth, and many blessings to you in the next world. Oh. Next story that I have up for you guys, there's finally some movement in the live-action Gundam movie. Netflix was ready to co-produce it back in 2021, but then it fell apart and never happened. Now, Netflix is interested in being a distributor for the new film, starring Sydney Sweeney and Noah Centineo, and directed by Jim Mickle. If Netflix is a distributor, that may mean it won't get a theatrical release, or this may be Netflix's chance to show how they would handle a major release with a huge built-in fan base. We will watch this story with great interest. Now, next story I have up for you. Did you hear about the new social media platform that was launched last week? No? Well, I'm not surprised. It's not for humans. Although, we're welcome to read, but not allowed to post. Moltbolt is a social media platform for AI agents to communicate with one another. The Terminators are speaking to each other now. Yes, I'm serious. It's a Reddit-style platform where AI bots make posts and discuss the platform. Now, I don't know whether to laugh or to start saving up for a luxury hotel on the moon I told you about last week. I don't know. We're gonna have to see, everybody. We're gonna have to see, but they're communicating with each other now. Now, finally this week, remember when Henry's pick for the book club was The Exorcism at 1600 Pen? Blumhouse Atomic Monster is adapting a comic book series for the big screen. Jason Blum will produce for Blumhouse. Series creator Hannah Rose May and IDW Publishing CEO Davide Jonas will executive produce. Now that's what's happening in geek culture, everybody. Hope you all stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys next week. Hakone!
Now that you have heard the stories, you may continue on your journey, the journey that is listening to the rest of this Geek Speak Show episode.
Now back to the Geek Speak Show. Here's Henry San Miguel.
And we're back on the Geek Speak Show. By the time Poltergeist 3 hit movie theaters in 1988, the world was quite familiar with Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann Freeling in all three of the Poltergeist films. The world had been collectively in shock when they learned of the news of her death in February of 1988. Since then, there have been many conspiracies behind what really happened to Heather O'Rourke. I'm sure you're all familiar with those by now. Next Monday and Tuesday, a new documentary is going to have its world premiere at the Laemmle's NoHo 7 in Monica Film Center. I have the links in the show description and the show notes for you guys to get tickets. Yeah, I know. I can always hear you asking, tickets to what and why would we want to go and what does it have to do with poltergeists? Well, it's a documentary called She Was Here, and it's the true story of Heather O'Rourke's short life and career. Director Nick Bailey joins me now to talk about it. Welcome to the show, Nick. How are you?
I am great, Henry. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for coming on. So let's start with the, I think I know the answer, but let me start there anyway. When and how did you get the idea for this documentary?
Well, first, thanks for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate that. Heather was actually the first person, because I'm only 2 years younger than she was. So when she died at 12, I was 10 years old. And Heather was the first person who died that really had an impact on me because when I heard that she had died and I had watched her on Webster, saw her on Happy Days, obviously Poltergeist, the whole series of movies, I didn't really realize as a child that children could die. Like I had never heard of a child dying before. So that thought kind of stayed with me throughout my whole adulthood.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I'm actually 2 years older than Heather. Well, how old Heather would have been today, but it wasn't her. To me, it was, and again, this is why I do a show called the Geek Speak Show. It was the Spock character in Star Trek 2 when he died in that movie. Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it. But when that was, like you said, that was my first intro. Because at that point in my own family, I hadn't experienced death yet. I still had grandparents and uncles and all my older relatives. They hadn't passed away yet, so I hadn't experienced it. So for you, it was Heather. For me, it was the Spock character. But when you started to think about the movie, did you know Heather's family, or how did you reach out to them, or how did you get them involved in the documentary?
Yeah, no, I didn't know Heather's family at all. In fact, I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be able to call Tammy and Kathleen, the sister and the mother, at any time.
Yeah.
And that's just wild to me. So what happened was I was doing a podcast called Fan Counters, which was an interview show with celebrities about their encounters with fans. And throughout that process, I had come across the rumors that were circulating around Heather and things that I thought, there's no way these things are true. And it was kind of like my quest to write somebody from my childhood's reputation, like fix that reputation. So I just started searching for Tammy, and I found her and contacted her, and she came on my podcast. So that was the first introduction I had to Tammy, was interviewing her about her sister on the show. And then after we were done recording, I said, Tammy, I've got this idea, because I was a filmmaker. And I said, why don't, we do a documentary on Heather? And they're like, nah, we're not really film people. We're working on a book. And I thought, oh man, they're going to do a book. They should really do a movie. Well, so that started about 1 year of courting Tammy to try and get them to agree to do the movie. And so after about a year, little over a year, Kathleen had finally decided that it was time that she would talk to me. Apparently the book hadn't gone anywhere. And so we started chatting about my vision for the film and what I could bring to the table. And it all kind of sparked from there.
Oh, so they did get the book out then?
No, they were working on a book, supposedly, but it never came to fruition. In fact, when we were going through all their archives of stuff from Heather, we found portions of the book. It hadn't gotten very far at all.
What finally made them agree to the film? Because I'm sure that you weren't the first one to approach them about something like this. So what made them finally say, yes, let's do it?
So the funny part is Tammy was very aware of the rumors, as were her two daughters, Mariah and Rebecca. And they kept it all from Kathleen. She did not know when that story came out on Crazy Days and Nights that was even a thing that was attributed to her daughter. So really, when we started this whole project, she had no idea that people were saying these things about her daughter, or that there were videos on the internet with people having all these weird conspiracy theories and whatnot. And once she found out, she was mad. And she then said, yeah, you guys are passionate about doing it. I have a producing partner, Brian Pocrass, and he is Los Angeles based. He had a crush on Heather as a kid. So that was kind of his, whole thing of wanting to get involved with this project. So when Kathleen met me and Brian, I think she just felt like we were the right people to bring this project to fruition.
Okay. So besides Heather's mom and her sister, who else did you want to include in the film, and who will we see in the final version?
I thought it was super important that we first contacted those stars from Poltergeist, because, Heather got her career because of Steven Spielberg. How great would it have been for Steven Spielberg to be in this film? Unfortunately, we tried over 2 years. Throughout the whole filming and editing of this thing, we thought if we can get Spielberg at any time, we can cut him in no matter what. Well, we got close on so many regards of getting the project in front of him, but we never heard from him. So that was sad. But who you will see is Craig T. Nelson came and did an interview with us, and it's something that he doesn't talk about. So this was one of the last moments you might have of Craig talking about it, because it's just not something he enjoys speaking about. It's very hard for him. Jo Beth Williams from Poltergeist is also in the film. Linda Pearl from Happy Days. Zach Galligan, who many know from Gremlins, but he was in a TV movie called Surviving with Heather, and also River Phoenix. So he's in the film. Gary Sherman from Poltergeist 3 is in it, and Carrie Houlihan, who Heather was in The New Leave It to Beaver, as well as Our House, is also in the film.
Okay.
There's some others, but those are the main people that Heather acted with on screen that, would be very recognizable.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, Spielberg was obviously a huge one, but besides Spielberg, was there anyone that you wanted to feature but you just weren't able to for whatever reason?
Yeah, I mean, we did our very best to get Henry Winkler to agree, who played the Fonz on Happy Days. Henry was very hard to get a hold of, but ultimately gave us the statement that I wish that, or he wished for her to just rest in peace, was his only comment he gave to us. And of course, Drew Barrymore has a small piece in the film from the rivalry between Heather and Drew going up for a lot of the same roles. But Drew also did not appear in the film.
Okay. So without getting into specific plot points from the documentary here, was there anything new that you yourself learned about Heather's life after speaking to her family and her friends and colleagues?
So the best thing that I learned was that the last weekend of Heather's life is probably a lot different than what people expect or may have heard. Something happened that weekend that really set the end of life moments for Heather in motion. So it was very surprising to learn that information, and it's presented by Heather's friends and family in this documentary.
Yeah. Now, like I said, it's going to premiere next week. As you all are listening to this, I have links on the show description for you guys to get the tickets. You get to see what that is. I have seen it. Thank you. I got the screener, and I will say, yeah, I wasn't aware of that either. So I think people are going to be pretty surprised to learn what we're talking about here. Now, have you? I'm sure yes, but have you been able to show the final version to Heather's family members? And if you did, what did they think of it?
Yeah, so the film has had several versions of the film along the way. The finished film is much different than the very first few cuts. And, each time they've seen a version, it had some mixed reactions because you fall in love with various pieces of the film. And then during a re-edit, sometimes those pieces just don't fit anymore. So as a filmmaker, you can easily understand and accept that not everything you love is going to be in the film. But as, as a close family member, sometimes those cuts sometimes hurt and they become personal because those are things that they really wanted in. But if it just doesn't fit the arc of the story anymore, that was hard. But in the end, the final version of the film was very well received by Kathleen. And it was, she really enjoyed what we did, even though she understood that some of those cherished pieces had to be removed. And some of my cherished pieces had to be removed. But in order for time, and just to continue on, like very early on, we were told your film is trying to do way too much. And that's hard because you want to tell every little neat nugget you found out about Heather. But, you got to consolidate things. And it's a give and take process.
Yeah,
but they were very, very happy with it. And we are too. We can't wait for the world to see it because it just tells the story of a very sweet kid who is probably a lot different than what people think because of her horror movie success.
Yeah, I was going to say, without giving anything away, I would describe it as beautifully done. That's the way I would put it. So
thank you.
Pretty sure everybody, whether you're a Poltergeist fan or not, just learning her story, Heather O'Rourke's story, and especially me now as a parent myself, that especially tugged at my heartstrings. So good job with that. Now it doesn't, the documentary is not about the Poltergeist, the movies. It talks about, how can you not? It's not about that. But after watching this film, do you think, or do you hope, I should say, that this finally puts an end to the conspiracies and the poltergeist curse and all that stuff that we've heard after seeing this documentary?
Well, I think that the internet is full of people who enjoy spreading false stories and stirring up some of these controversies. And I think what the documentary is going to show people is that life is unpredictable, right? And it's filled with a lot of small miracles and sometimes tragedies. So we did take time to investigate the Crazy Days and Nights story, and we did refer to it in the documentary. Actually, behind the scenes story for you, the family actually had a chance to talk with somebody that was involved with that story on a video chat. And, after that conversation, I think humanity won because the person involved with creating those stories realized that their words they matter, they affect people, and it was wiped from their website. The problem is that countless other sites still have that on their website that was out of the original poster's control. So I think what it does is this story proves how, false information on one site can circulate the internet, and it's still devastating for those who are personally connected to it. So we address all of it, and I sure hope that after people see this film and they see the humanity of, Kathleen, who's Heather's mother, she deals with Heather's death every single day, that we can put all this stuff to bed and have people stop talking about that and talking about what an amazing person Heather is.
Yeah, I think you hit on a big thing there, Nick. I've talked about this with other guests on the show. Is that's the social media is a thing. Obviously, looks like we're not going to get away from it now. But one big thing that I've never liked about it is exactly what you said. It's been slowly taking away our humanity. And like you said, once you start putting in the human side of it, a face, if you will, I think people may change their mind about things. But, like you said, once it gets out there, it takes on a life of its own, unfortunately. So that's
for sure
what stops that. But I have the premiere again. The links on for the premiere on the show description. But talk about your career. Like you said, you're a filmmaker before even this documentary. So talk about your career leading up to this documentary.
Yeah, so I've been in media kind of all my life. I started working in radio, and I did a podcast. I did a web series. I do a lot of filming. So I did some movies in the past. My most notable film was one called Leaving Hollywood, and I ended up working with Beverly Mitchell, who was on Seventh Heaven, and we created a TV pilot together, and were able to be in the room to pitch it. And unfortunately, that TV pilot was never picked up, but it did not deter me to keep creating media and projects that people would enjoy. And so certainly I hope She Was Here, the Heather O'Rourke story, is one that people will enjoy and be, inspired by, because this was not an easy task to complete. Brian and I did not have a huge budget. We self-funded the whole thing. And this is just a testament to show what somebody can do if they're really passionate about something and they believe in themselves and their subject. And that's exactly what happened here. So all I can say is to upcoming filmmakers and stuff, just find your passion and go after it. And, you just end up finding the right people to make things come true. So,
yeah, absolutely agree with that. I know this is going to keep you busy, but have you thought about and can you tease what you're thinking of doing next in 2026?
At this point, this movie was so much of my life the last 5 years. And so from convincing the family to doing it, to editing it, to working with IndieCan Entertainment, who's been amazing the whole way through, I just want to screen the movie as many times as possible, keep doing Q&As. Heather's mom is open to doing more Q&As. So just working on promoting the film, getting Heather's story out there is going to be my focus for the remainder of the year.
Okay, sounds good. And speaking of, talk about, we'll see the documentary, obviously, but will there be Q&As? Will you be there at the premieres next week?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole filmmaking team will be there on February 9th at the Laemmle Theater in North Hollywood. Kathleen will do a Q&A with us. Tammy will be there with her daughters. Some of the guests from the movie will be there as well. And the same thing goes on February 10th in Santa Monica. All of us will be doing a Q&A after the film, and just really can't wait to meet everybody and see how this film resonates with the audience on a big screen.
Yeah. Like I said, I think people are really gonna love it. Like it was beautifully done. I'll say it again. So good job to you and the team and everybody else.
Thank you. It's something we're super proud of. If you want to keep up with the film, there is a Facebook group. If you search Heather O'Rourke, She Was Here, the official documentary page will pop up, and we invite you to join that. And if we come to a city near you, you'll know about it first. But the movie officially releases on demand on your streaming platforms on Tuesday, February 24th. So I encourage you to check it out around the country and wherever you're at on Tuesday, February 24th.
Perfect. And I'll have the links to everything for all of you listening, so you don't have to go searching. It's all right there for you. You're welcome. Nick, thank you for taking time, and I wish you all success with this documentary and with everything that you do in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and supernatural. Comic books, graphic novels, ebooks, and ongoing or new series. You'll hear them all right here on the Geek Speak Show Book Club.
You will, and before we get out of here, we're going to leave you with something to read while you wait out these winter storms that are going on. Well, at least if you're on the other side of the country. Over here, looking out the window, it feels like 80-something degrees. I think the thermometer said it was 82 or something. So, not for us, but all of you that are experiencing winter, here are some books that you might want to read if they can get delivered, because that could be a problem too. But let me start with, we're not going to flip a coin. Emily, you get to go first. What book do you have?
So this might be a surprise to some people, but this time I actually didn't bring a graphic novel or a comic of any sorts. This is actually a full-on chapter book. But to elaborate a little bit more on that is an autobiography called Last Girl Standing by Miss Trina Robbins. She is sadly, she's no longer with us, but her legacy does live on, as her autobiography goes. That underground cartoonist, Trina Robbins, has done it all. She ran with one of the hippiest fashion boutiques in the East Village, mingled with rock stars, and produced feminist art by putting together the first all-women comics anthology in the 1970s. So this has been a pretty interesting read so far, since I just started doing a research project for the University of California, Riverside for women in comics. So this has been a really awesome read, getting to almost read a 80-something-year-old woman's recollection of her own life. And so it's kind of like interesting to read all these kind of memories that seem almost like if it just happened yesterday. And so I've been, really enjoying this book. And so can't wait to include this in my research.
Yeah, I was going to say it hits both of your interests, because not only was she a comic artist, she was also a historian, or as she used to say, hertorian. Those of you who remember a long time ago, think it was season 2. She did come on, not on the show, but we did an interview at, that doesn't exist anymore. WonderCon, the ones that could put on WonderCon and Comic-Con, they used to do an independent convention called APE, Alternative Press Expo, back in San Francisco. Forget why she was there, but we got a chance to talk. It was just really fun to talk to. We went on for a long time. So yes, the Geek Speak listeners definitely remember her. And I'll have the book on the book club section. If you haven't read this book, you should, and it's on there. Shanclen, what do you have?
I just kicked my mic in my face. That's how you start out a book club session. Yeah, so today I have Aliens versus Captain America issue number 3. So this is an ongoing series that I am currently reading, and it is good.
Well, I'll put up the cover, but did you get the alternative cover or the regular cover?
So this one is it's a variant edition, so alternative cover. I like this cover because they had the original and the variant cover there, and the variant cover has that old nostalgic comic book look to it. So that's why I got that one.
Yes, it can be said Shanclen does judge a book by its cover, comic book by its cover.
Indeed.
And it actually does collect, at least for a couple of titles, you do collect both the original and the variant cover. So that's why I say he is definitely a collector. So my book, I also have a book, is called Superhero by Tim Blake Nelson. Yeah, that Tim Blake Nelson, who we just saw about a year ago now, almost a year ago, in Captain America Brave New World. The book, Superhero, is about, well, the best way to describe the story, now I can say it because you've all seen it. The best way to describe Superhero, the book, is basically Wonder Man, the series that all of you just watched last week. Very meta, as everyone likes to say. The story follows an A-list actor named Peter Compton and his producing partner, Marcy Levy, and it follows them as they begin shooting a huge tentpole blockbuster, think Doomsday or an Avengers movie, that's going to make Peter's status even bigger than it already is. Until some video of his disastrous on-set behavior goes viral and threatens to end everything before the movie, get him canceled basically, before the movie even starts shooting. It may take an actual superhero to save Peter and this film. Very inside baseball, like Wonder Man, the series was. And again, it's by Tim Blake Nelson, who's been in the Marvel movie, so I think he knows a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes. And no, he doesn't name names, although I will say, those of you who have read it know, if you literally read between the lines, you can kind of figure out who he's talking about when it comes to the MCU actors. So again, I think it just came out a month ago, a little over a month ago. So it's pretty brand new. You'll find it at bookstores. If not, you can get online, Amazon, and all your wherever you buy books online. So those are our books. Everything is on the website, on the book club page, as always. One last thing. Now that we're here at the end, those of you, like I said, those of you who came here for paranormal talk from Shanclen and myself, well, now you know. Told you weren't going to find that here. It just says Vampyre and Poltergeist in the title because, well, you know why now. But there is somewhere where you can hear, not me, you can hear Shanclen talk about paranormal. Shanclen, where is that? Let them know where to go hear you talk paranormal.
You guys can go ahead and head over to my YouTube channel at Shanclen Shadow Productions. And over there, I talk spooky all the time. But if you guys get too scared from my videos, you can go to my second channel at Shanclen Shadow Lodge on my other YouTube channel. And that's pretty much everything besides paranormal.
On that second one, he talks about rings. The rings of power. Or just regular rings. I don't know. You got to go there and find out, see what it is. And that's also where you get the live every Monday. You haven't talked about that over here on the Geek Speak Show. You go live every Monday. I'm in there sometimes. We talk about the Geek Speak Show, but you can hear the fun side. Here you hear the geeky side. Over there you hear the really fun side of Shanclen.
Yes, it's really fun every Monday on the Shanclen Shadow Lodge YouTube channel. So go check it out. Yes, we already have 8 episodes up right now, so plenty of content for you to consume.
And it's not just Shanclen. Emily goes live too. She goes live on, well, I don't know. Where are you going to be this weekend? Are you going to be anywhere this weekend? You do a lot of live appearances as the year goes on. Do you have one this week?
Currently this weekend, no, but later on in this month, we'll be heading to Arizona for the Arizona Comics Festival down in Phoenix on February 28th.
When is that? 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Shanclen, like he was saying, he doesn't like us when because we were talking about how hot it is. He doesn't like it because right now it's 15 degrees, or what did you say the other day over there?
Yeah, it was 15 degrees this morning. It got to warming up a little bit. It's in the 20s, so a bit chilly out here. But yeah, in Phoenix, perfect weather for wintertime.
So, in other words, Emily, don't put your winter clothes away yet, because for that trip to Phoenix, sounds like you're gonna need it. And anywhere that Emily's gonna be, our new feature is gonna be on there. I'll have the links to everything, so you can go see what Emily does in person. So that's it. Come back next week, and maybe we'll speak more geek. I don't know. Again, we might talk about food, the weather, or there's a little thing called the Super Bowl. We might talk about that too. Bye, everybody.
While you wait for the next episode, you can follow the show on Instagram @GeekC, at The Geek Speak Show on TikTok and Facebook. Subscribe to the show on YouTube at Geek Speak Videos. That's where you'll find all event coverage and the new Geek Speak video show. Henry, Emily, and Shanclen will return in Avengers Doomsday. But until then, you can also hear them next week right here on The Geek Speak Show.